Today is the feast of Pope Paul VI, the one who put out Humanae Vitae. Not a very popular pope, but a saint nonetheless. And a hidden gem, Joseph Girard. If you ask anybody in the world today, when you think of South Africa, what do you think of? First thing that they say is diamonds. But if you ask a South African, especially a South African black from Lesotho, a little country which never was conquered by the South African Boers, you ask them, what's the richest thing you can think of? They would want some dirt from the coffin of this Joseph Girard, because that dirt, they believe, works miracles better than the diamond, the richest diamond that they ever found in South Africa, which was called a Hope Diamond, which was, by the way, sent to England in a package in the post office. So Joseph Girard comes wrapped in very ordinary clothing, and yet his sanctity is well known. His bringing of hope to the people of Lesotho is very well known. He started off his life in the 1800s in near Nancy, France. Small village. He worked on a farm, and he was a shepherd for a while. And I think God has a way of falling in love with shepherds. And this little boy was catechized by Sister Adelia, and she taught him two things, at least what he remembers from his catechism: a love for the Eucharist and a love for Mary. When he made his first Holy Communion, he felt the calling from God to become a priest. Entered the seminary, and there he encountered men from a young group of missionaries. And he was so impressed with them, he wanted to join them, and he did. He became an oblate of Mary Immaculate, having gone to the shrine of Our Lady of Sion in France, and then to the seminary in Lady of Oiseau in France as well. He was ordained a deacon by the founder of the Oblates of Mary Immaculate, Eugene de Mazenod, Bishop of Marseille, and he was sent to Africa. God writes straight with crooked lines. He left Toulouse from France on a ship bound for Africa, and he ended up, because the winds blew him off course, in South America. He had to take another ship to Africa. South America had a visitor from heaven named Guadalupe, and in her eye is NASA, who just put a man on the moon, and who has launched again another satellite, or at least tried to. They did a study of the eyes of Mary, because the eye is like a mirror. And in the eye of Mary, they found not only Juan Diego, the Indian, the bishop of Mexico City, but they saw a black slave, one of the early black slaves in the New World. They were the three races that were to make up the New World. There they were represented, the eyes of Mary. She had a great love for all these races, and she wanted to make them one in her love. Anyway, he gets a ship and he goes to Africa. It doesn't end up in Natal, where he was heading to, but he ends up in Mauritius, an island off the coast of Africa, and has to get another ship. But while he's in this island, he begins to catechize the young. He begins to visit the sick. He begins to visit the elderly and the old and dying, and bury the dead. So much so that the bishop was so impressed, he sent a letter to the bishop of Natal and said how wonderful this deacon, who de Mazenod called a holy deacon, had impressed him. When he got to Natal, he was, shortly thereafter, began a retreat and made a priest. And he was sent to work among the Zulus. That was his original mission. The Zulus are the tall Africans who fought the Boers, very strong and fighting warriors. And they didn't, after 8 years, want to become Christians. They loved Father. They accepted him. They welcomed him. But They said to him, "You come too late. We have too many wives, and you want us to have only one wife." So because of that, after 8 years, no converts, this priest wrote his letter to the founder, Bishop de Mazenod, and said, "We haven't made any converts. It's wasting our time." So de Mazenod sent back a letter and said, "Go to the interior, find the place in Africa where the tribes the mercy of God will bloom and God's work will be done." So he went, and he came upon a people called Lesotho people. And he went, leaving his baggage in Natal, he went to find the chief up on a high mountain. And there he asked the chief, can we be welcomed here to teach your people two things? One, the news of God, and the second, to read and write. And the chief said, fine. So he gave him a little piece of land. And that land came to be called Roma, because they were Roman Catholics, and where the Romans are is Rome. But the native people called it the village of Mary, the mother of Jesus. Mary was involved. They said that he couldn't go 15 minutes without invoking God's name, without praying to God. They said that this priest didn't eat. Prayer was food for him. He spent 14 years in Roma. He built a church, and actually, he didn't build a church. There was a brother with him, an oblate brother, an oblate bishop, Ellard, and Bishop Bernard, and he did the building, and this priest would go and live in the huts of the people. He wouldn't leave the hut until they became founded in the church and the faith. Then he would go. He finally was moved to Rivière, another town, and when he left Roma, he had left 500 Catholics. He went to Rivière, and then he called for nuns of the Holy Family, whose founders is just becoming canonized a saint, but he wanted teachers, and he got these nuns, and he brings the nuns, and shortly after, a war breaks out, the Boer War, and the Boers invade Lesotho, and the nuns and the priests have to run away and hide, and so he did. They ran away and hid, and they hid it, the nuns, in another place. They went to church because he went to visit the chief again on that high mountain, and he snuck around the troops with some kind of way. He wasn't discovered. He brought food to the chief. He risked his life to meet with this chief, and he said, "Chief, I want to help you in this war, but we don't have guns and we don't have weapons. We fight a different way. Let me dedicate your country to Our Lady, and she will protect you." The bishop or the king said, "Okay, let's do it." So on the 15th of August, the nuns and the bishop and the brother went to the church to dedicate the country of Lesotho to Our Blessed Mother on her Assumption Day. And the Boers decided this is the day they're going to conquer Lesotho. So they attack, and they try to get up this mountain. They start with 600 at the bottom of the mountain, but it was a very high mountain, a very dangerous mountain. And the general, or one leading the Boers, when he got to the top, there were only 60 men. So he didn't know whether he should wait for it. He sent 2 messages for reinforcements. None came. So he decided to make a run for it, and he charged the top of the mountain, and he was killed in that charge. And they heard 2 great yells down below. One from the Lesotho, who were thanking God and happy that this general was killed, and the other because they had dedicated themselves to Mary and to God. He became, from that day forward, accepted as one of their own. And when he had to leave Rivière after 20-some years, he went back to Roma, and there he was visiting the sick. And he was so ill and so old that it took 2 men to put him on the horse. I don't know how they let him go on his horse alone, but they did. And then when he got to the place to visit the sick, 2 men would take him off the horse. Now that's faith for you. Ride a horse when you're over 80. I don't know how he did it, but Anyway, he did. And one time, a man came to him and said, "There's a man who wants to see you. He's dying. He's an old man and he wants to meet you." And so, but Father was praying and he said, "I'll go after my prayers." So after his prayers, another group came from the same man and said, "Don't waste your time, Father. He's dead." But this priest went. He said, "He has to see me. I'm going." He went and he called out the man's name, and the man rose up from the dead. He heard his confession. He anointed him with the sick. He said goodbye and left, and the man died. And he said, "You can now rest in peace." And he turned around and died. So the people accepted this man as a holy man. How he became a saint is, we don't know. But the people called him a man of prayer. And how his first miracle was that a young child went to the doctor and there was no hope. The doctor said, this child is blind and there's nothing we can do anymore. So they took him to the priest who had taken Father's place, Penerath. And Father Penerath said, "Well, let's see what we can do." So he went and prayed at the tomb of Father Joseph Gerard. And the child went home, fell asleep, and in a dream he saw a priest and touched him on the head and said, "You will see again, my son. You can see." He woke up and he could see. His mother took him to the doctor, and the doctor said, "I don't know how this happened, but you now can't see. It's true. There's no medical reason." And Father Penerath said, "Which priest?" He said, "I don't know." So he showed him all the pictures. He went into the house, got all the pictures of the priest who worked in Roma. And when he saw the picture of Gerard Joseph, he said, "That's the priest who came to me. That's the priest who said to me that." And Father Joseph said when he was dying, these were his final words. He said, "Lesotho people, don't think when I'm going to heaven that I'm going to forget you. I'll be working for you. I'll be working for you." And he hasn't stopped. The greatest diamond that came from Africa was the one who was sent to South America and sent again by Our Lady Guadalupe to bring hope to the dark continent. The name of the church that he founded in Riviere was Saint Monica, an African saint, mother of Augustine. Mexico has Guadalupe, has Mary, but Africa has Joseph. May he bring hope to our troubled and broken world.